Hello fams, welcome back. Please subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Picture this, July 29th, 2025. The sun beats down on Abidjan, the vibrant heart of Ivory Coast. The air is thick with humidity, but even thicker with anticipation and uncertainty. The nation holds its breath, teetering on the edge of a political precipice. Ivory Coast is on edge. A palpable tension hangs in the air, a feeling that something significant is about to unfold. The streets, usually bustling with commerce and life, now carry an undercurrent of anxiety. Worried faces peer from windows and hushed conversations fill the cafes. For months the nation speculated, the media dissected every rumor, political analysts offered their predictions, and ordinary citizens debated the possibilities in markets and homes. The question on everyone's mind was, would President Alassane Ouattara, 83, a figure who has dominated Ivorian politics for over a decade, seek a fourth term? A move that would shatter constitutional norms and plunge the nation into uncharted territory? The suspense was everywhere, a heavy blanket smothering the usual vibrancy of Ivorian life. Every news bulletin, every political gathering, every casual conversation seemed to revolve around this single looming question. The stakes enormous. The stability of the nation, its democratic future, and the legacy of its leader all hung precariously in the balance. Then, the announcement, the moment the entire nation, and much of the world, had been waiting for. The air crackled with anticipation as the press gathered, cameras flashed, and microphones were adjusted. Ouattara declared, "I am a candidate." The words echoed across the nation, igniting a firestorm of reactions. Relief, anger, disbelief, a cocktail of emotions swept through the Ivorian populace. He framed his run, attempting to justify his decision in the face of widespread criticism and constitutional concerns. As a sacrifice, a burden he was willing to bear for the sake of his country. For peace and prosperity, promising to continue the economic growth and stability that Ivory Coast had experienced under his leadership. Not personal ambition. He insisted that he was not driven by a desire for power, but by a deep sense of responsibility to his nation. He cited security threats, both internal and external, economic turmoil, exacerbated by global events and regional instability, and terrorism, the ever-present specter haunting the region, as reasons only he, with his experience and proven track record, could steer the country through these turbulent times and safeguard its future. This wasn't just another election, a routine exercise in democratic process, he insisted. It was a fight, a battle for the very essence of Ivory Coast, for the nation's soul, a struggle to preserve its identity, its values, and its place in the world. Supporters cheered, their faith in Ouattara unwavering, relieved their leader would stay, providing a sense of continuity and stability in an uncertain world. But for many, the announcement was met with dismay and anger. It felt like democracy was being betrayed, that the very foundations of their republic were being eroded. Instead of unity, which the nation desperately needed, the announcement deepened divisions, exacerbating existing tensions and creating new fault lines within Ivorian society. The political waters churned, the ship of state was caught in a storm of controversy and dissent, the country was split, torn between loyalty and principle, between stability and democratic ideals. The real drama was just beginning. The announcement was merely the opening act in a play that would determine the future of Ivory Coast. Ouattara's move set the stage. The pieces were now in place for a high-stakes political showdown. For a confrontation, a battle for the heart and soul of the nation, years in the making. Decades of political maneuvering, ethnic tensions, and unresolved grievances had all led to this pivotal moment. The cliffhanger ended, the suspense broken by Ouattara's decisive declaration. But the stakes had never been higher. The future of Ivory Coast, its stability, and its democratic credentials were all on the line. The nation braced, preparing for the tumultuous months ahead, knowing that the road to the election would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. For what would come next? The political landscape was shifting, alliances were being forged and broken, and the future remained shrouded in mist. The world watched with bated breath, waiting for Ivory Coast's next move. The international community recognized the significance of this moment, understanding that the outcome of the election would have far-reaching consequences for the region and beyond. The future of millions of Ivorian citizens, their hopes, their dreams, and their aspirations, now hung in the balance. Their fate rested on the decisions made by their leaders and the choices they would make at the ballot box. The countdown to October's election, the day that would determine the course of Ivorian history, had begun. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the world was watching. To truly grasp the depth of the outrage that swept through Ivory Coast, we need to understand the context, the history, and the promises that were made and seemingly broken. The anger wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it was the culmination of years of political maneuvering and perceived betrayals. So, let's rewind a bit. Let's go back in time to examine the framework that was in place, the rules that governed the land, and the expectations of the Ivorian people. Ivory Coast's constitution, the supreme law of the land, once limited presidents, ensuring a peaceful transfer of power and preventing any one individual from holding on to the presidency indefinitely. The constitution restricted presidential terms to 2, a safeguard for democracy designed to protect the nation from the potential pitfalls of authoritarianism and ensure a fair and representative government. In 2016, a pivotal year in Ivorian politics, President Alassane Ouattara introduced a new constitution, a move that would have far-reaching consequences for the country's political landscape. This new constitution effectively reset the term clock, raising questions about the intentions behind the reform. This allowed him controversially to run for a third term in office, a decision that sparked widespread debate and ignited political tensions. The year 2020 arrived, bringing with it the prospect of another election, sparking boycotts from opposition parties and civil society groups who felt the rules were being unfairly manipulated. These boycotts quickly escalated into violence as protests turned into clashes between demonstrators and security forces. Many Ivorians saw this situation as a blatant manipulation of the democratic process, a move designed to consolidate power. It was perceived by many as a way to cling to power, regardless of the will of the people. The promise of stability, which had been a cornerstone of Ouattara's appeal, became, in the eyes of many, a political tool used to justify extending his time in office. It was seen as a justification for extending his rule, potentially at the expense of democratic principles. So, when President Ouattara announced his intention to run for a fourth term, despite previous commitments, it felt like déjà vu, a repeat of past controversies, only this time the situation felt even worse, with deeper divisions and heightened tensions. Political critics and opposition voices saw a leader willing to bend any rule, to stretch the boundaries of the Constitution, all in an effort to stay in office, regardless of the consequences for the nation. The political debate shifted dramatically, moving away from discussions about policy and governance, to a fundamental question about the very survival of Ivorian democracy and its core institutions. For many Ivorians, deeply concerned about the future of their country, it felt like a profound betrayal of trust, a violation of the principles they held dear. It was seen as a betrayal of the nation's foundations, the constitutional principles upon which Ivory Coast was built. With Ouattara running again, the opposition should have been the alternative, but opposition candidates began vanishing from the ballot. The Electoral Commission disqualified major figures including Tidjane Thiam, citing technicalities. Thiam, a strong challenger, was barred over dual nationality, even after renouncing his French citizenship. Other heavyweights like Laurent Gbagbo and Guillaume Soro were also excluded. The government called it impartial law, critics called it targeted elimination. Democracy suffered as credible challengers were sidelined. Thiam called it total absence of democracy. With real competition gone, the election looked more like a coronation. Civil society warned of dangerously restricted political space. The people's choice was being erased before their eyes. The stage was set for a one-sided contest. With rivals barred and the ballot rigged, Ivorians took to the streets. Protests erupted nationwide, led by young people demanding real democracy. Their message: Ouattara must step aside for a genuine transition. The protests weren't just about one man. They were about stolen rights and a rigged system. The government's heavy-handed response only fueled anger. Tensions soared as the social contract frayed. Civil society warned of a dangerous path ahead. The demonstrations became a desperate plea to save democracy. The risk of confrontation grew with every march. The people refused to let their voices be silenced. In moments of crisis, West Africa looks to ECOWAS, the regional watchdog. But as Ivory Coast teetered, ECOWAS stayed silent. No condemnation, no pressure on Ouattara, no action on opposition bans. For Ivorians, this felt like betrayal. ECOWAS's credibility crumbled. It looked more like a club of presidents than a guardian of democracy. The double standard was clear: quick to punish coups, slow to challenge civilian power grabs. This silence emboldened leaders to bend rules. The region's stability was at risk, but ECOWAS did little. Citizens felt abandoned, democracy left unprotected. The watchdog's silence spoke volumes. ECOWAS's inaction exposed a deeper hypocrisy. When soldiers seize power, ECOWAS imposes harsh sanctions, but when presidents subvert democracy with legal tricks, the response is muted. Leaders like Ouattara operate with impunity, eroding trust in the system. This double standard fuels resentment and justifies coups elsewhere. Military rulers point to civilian abuses to defend their actions. The public sees a rigged game, losing faith in peaceful change. Sahelian states left ECOWAS, citing these very double standards. By ignoring slow-motion democratic erosion, ECOWAS undermines its own mission. Instability and extremism fill the vacuum left behind. The region's democratic future hangs in the balance. As tensions rose, rumors of a coup flooded social media. Fake videos and anonymous posts sparked panic in Abidjan. The government scrambled to deny the stories, but the damage was done. The fact that so many believed a coup was possible showed deep national anxiety. Memories of past violence resurfaced, trust in peace evaporated. Social media became a weapon, amplifying fear and confusion. The digital chaos revealed just how fragile the country had become. The line between rumor and reality blurred, raising the stakes for everyone. Ivory Coast's crisis isn't just local, it's global. As Africa's top cocoa producer and a regional powerhouse, its stability matters worldwide. But the real stakes are for democracy in West Africa. If Ivory Coast slides into authoritarianism, it sets a dangerous precedent. Other leaders may follow, eroding democratic norms across the continent. A peaceful transition would offer hope. Another crisis would deepen despair. Ultimately, this is about people's right to choose their future. The world is watching, and the outcome will echo far beyond its borders. August 10th, 2025. A date etched in the minds of many. A day that could very well determine the course of a nation. The weight of decisions hangs heavy in the air as the clock continues its relentless march forward. The newspapers carry headlines filled with uncertainty, and the calendar serves as a stark reminder of the rapidly approaching future. Ivory Coast stands at a crossroads, a pivotal juncture in its history. The path ahead is shrouded in mist, and the choices made now will reverberate for generations to come. The nation finds itself at a critical intersection where the road taken will define its destiny. One path leads to a descent into darkness, a rigged election, a betrayal of the democratic process. This path is paved with deceit and corruption, threatening to undermine the very foundations of a just society. The specter of election fraud looms large, casting a shadow of doubt over the legitimacy of the government. Division, tearing the social fabric apart. Communities are fractured, and trust erodes as the nation becomes increasingly polarized. The seeds of discord are sown, threatening to unravel the unity that binds the people together, and possible conflict, a descent into chaos and violence. The drums of war beat louder, threatening to engulf the nation in a devastating conflict. The specter of civil unrest looms large, casting a dark shadow over the future. The other demands dialogue, a commitment to peaceful resolution. Open communication and understanding are essential to bridging divides and finding common ground. The path to peace begins with a willingness to listen and engage in constructive dialogue. Compromise, a willingness to find common ground. It requires setting aside personal ambitions and prioritizing the well-being of the nation. Compromise is the cornerstone of a stable and harmonious society, and real democracy, where every voice is heard and respected. Free and fair elections are the foundation of a just and equitable society. The power rests with the people, and their voices must be amplified. Leaders must put the nation above personal power, prioritizing the collective good. Selfless leadership is essential to guiding the nation through these turbulent times. The interests of the people must always come first. Institutions must serve the people, ensuring justice and equality for all. These institutions are the bedrock of a stable and prosperous society. They must be transparent, accountable, and responsive to the needs of the citizens, not the powerful, ensuring fairness and equity. The scales of justice must be balanced, and no one should be above the law. The pursuit of power and wealth must not come at the expense of the common good. ECOWAS and the world must act with urgency and resolve. The international community has a responsibility to support Ivory Coast in its quest for peace and democracy. Their actions can have a profound impact on the nation's future. Silence is no longer an option. The time for decisive action is now. The voices of the people must be heard, and their demands for justice and democracy must be heeded. The world cannot stand idly by while Ivory Coast teeters on the brink. The message must be clear. Democracy isn't optional, it's a fundamental right. It is the cornerstone of a just and equitable society, and it must be protected at all costs. The people of Ivory Coast deserve the opportunity to choose their own destiny. The region's future depends on Ivory Coast's choices now, the decisions made in this critical moment. The ripple effects of these choices will be felt throughout West Africa and beyond. The stakes are high and the world is watching. The call for peace must drown out the drums of conflict, the whispers of violence. The voices of reason and reconciliation must rise above the din of war. The path to peace requires courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to dialogue. The demand for democracy must be louder than authoritarian whispers. The voices of oppression, the yearning for freedom and self-determination must resonate throughout the nation. The people of Ivory Coast deserve the right to choose their own leaders and shape their own destiny. For Ivorians who yearn for EU stability and a voice, a future free from fear and oppression, the promise of a better tomorrow must be within reach for all citizens. The pursuit of peace and democracy is a shared responsibility, and it requires the participation of every Ivorian. The time to act is now, before it's too late to change course. The urgency of the situation cannot be overstated. The future of Ivory Coast hangs in the balance, and the decisions made in the coming days will determine its fate. The window for a peaceful, democratic future is closing fast, slipping through our fingers. The opportunity to build a better tomorrow is dwindling with each passing moment. The time for action is now, before it's lost forever. The world is watching, with bated breath and growing concern, and history will remember what happens next, the choices that are made in this defining moment. The choice must be made, before it's too late, before the opportunity is lost forever. The future of Ivory Coast hangs in the balance and the world is waiting to see what path it will choose.